Welcome to today's episode of Game Changers Collective. I'm your host, Cassie Manner, and today I will be chatting with Charlie Render of Render Analytics. He is the data guy, and we are going to chat all things Google Ads, Meta Ads, tracking, analytics, and really just get into the nitty gritty of what the paid ad space looks like. Let's do it. Welcome to Game Changers Collective. I am so excited to have Charlie Render on today. We are going to get into a lot of marketing, a lot of Google ads. So let's jump in. For listeners who may not know you yet, who is Charlie Render and what problem do you help businesses solve?
Well, who is Charlie Render? So I am the data guy. I help businesses, organizations, nonprofits leverage data to improve their operations, increase their revenue, anything that can really improve their business, from digital marketing to employee management. And everything we do is sort of with a data-driven approach. We help all different kinds of businesses, big companies like Blue Cross Blue Shield or Marriott Hotels, but also really small, even mom and pop shops. So kind of help anyone who wants to use data to get ahead.
Awesome. Can't argue with that. What originally pulled you into marketing and analytics?
Well, my background back at school, when I was getting my master's at the University of Florida back in the day, my background was in data analytics. So I was always sort of into that world, and it was kind of pushed upon me from the get-go. Marketing came later. The digital marketing piece, we would have a lot of data insights where we were basically saying, hey, to our clients, these are some opportunities to actually improve your operations, get more sales. And then they would say, why don't you do it for us? And so that's kind of how we got into it originally. We do all different kinds of digital marketing. It's all data-driven with a data-driven philosophy. You can see we're Google partners, so we specialize in Google Ads. And that kind of came later. But we've been in the game for a few years now, and our clients do very well through digital marketing because we're so data-driven.
At what point did you realize data and paid traffic was where you wanted to specialize?
Well, I guess it kind of found me. I didn't necessarily find it, if that makes sense. Life kind of takes you where it takes you. This is, like I said, my background was kind of in data, and over time, just you work with your clients and you know what they want. They know what they want. And sometimes you mold and you adapt.
So why Google Ads specifically, and what made you pursue becoming a Google Ads partner?
Well, Google Ads is the number one digital marketing platform in terms of actually return on investment for most businesses. So there's other platforms as well, Meta Ads, Amazon, things like that. But from a paid ads perspective, Google Ads does have the best return on investment overall. And for the widest variety of businesses.
Well, going off of that, so you say Google Ads is, the number one. Why do you feel like that is personally?
Well, by the numbers, they have the best return on investment overall in terms of the reporting. And beyond that, what I like about Google Ads compared to other digital marketing platforms is that it's intent-based. So in your own life, think about it. When you're scrolling on Instagram or on TikTok or anything like that, you might see an advertisement, but you're sort of hitting it passively. You're not necessarily looking to be sold in that moment. Whereas when you're going on Google and you type in, barbershop near me, yeah, the local barbershops, they've got a customer lined up ready to go here, right? So you're hitting people at the moment where they're actually intending to make a decision, or at least plan ahead, right? So what's great about Google is it's very intent-based, and therefore it actually generates results. You hit people where they're actually ready to make a decision. Whereas the other platforms are a little more passive in that nature.
Right. So I guess a lot of consumer psychology in that they're ready for it now. They're like more quote unquote like hot leads rather than, cold leads. You're trying to target the people who might be interested in a new dog groomer versus someone who's looking for it right now.
And think about your own life, right? I mean, maybe you're looking for a new restaurant or an electrician or a plumber. If you've got some issue at your house, right? Most people go to Google for a lot of these types of businesses.
Yeah. I mean, for service-based industries specifically, Google's really a slam dunk for that because it's usually a lot of times an emergency situation when they're looking for someone.
But yeah, and Google knows it. They know it.
Yep.
They monetize off of that fact.
100%. So let's start simple. How do Google Ads actually work behind the scenes?
So it's a pay-per-click model. For most people, they've seen Google Ads before. When they're on Google, they'll see like a result that says sponsored or something like that. There's different types of Google Ads, and we can get into that. But overall, you're paying per click. So what's going on is every time someone actually interacts with your ad, you pay sometimes just a few cents, sometimes a few bucks, and you basically pay per click on a pay-per-click model. Because of that, you're not paying for all those people who don't click on Google Ads. Some people, including myself for that matter, see the sponsored result and they just skim right past it. But you're not paying for those people. You're only paying when someone actually interacts with you. So the game becomes, how do I actually get the most valuable clicks so that the people who are clicking on my ad are actually likely to convert or become customers or whatever action I want them to take. So what can you can control? You can control geographically where you're targeting. So if you're a local business, that's definitely important. You can control the actual text that you say that interacts with the user. You can control having other information like an address or phone number or images or logo, things like that. You can control the keywords that you show up for. That's probably the most important thing. So whereas on meta ads, like on Facebook, it's like you said, if someone's interested in dog groomers, you'll kind of have like an audience. But on Google, you're going after keywords primarily. So what you're really doing is you're saying, okay, dog groomer near me, dog groomers are in the city that you're in, dog groomers available now. And you're going after all these different keywords, dozens and dozens and dozens of combinations. And you're really trying to refine on the keywords that actually generate customers for you. There's a few other things you can control, a few other settings, but at its core, that's how Google Ads works.
So what made you pursue being a Google Ads partner, and how does that kind of set you apart from people who are maybe just, freelancing, getting into Google Ads? What does Google Ads partner really bring to the table?
Well, the main benefit to actual end businesses of working with a partner, first of all, they have to be qualified enough to be doing certain things every year, taking courses, passing exams, managing a minimum size of number of accounts. So there's requirements. So it does tell you when you're working with a Google business partner, that person meet minimum qualifications to basically be considered an expert, right? But honestly, more pragmatically, what's really useful is partners get additional resources that the average account doesn't get. So the most important resource that a partner gets is additional phone support. And if you've ever worked with Google Ads, you'll know, and I'll say this as a Google partner, their support is terrible. So being able to get phone support as opposed to chat or email support can often be a game changer if you're dealing with policy issues or any headaches that any of these that Google can bring. And Google Ads can bring a lot of headaches if you're not careful.
Yes, 100%. No, that's definitely a very clear distinction and something great for people to know. I mean, even just, when you're signing on with an agency, knowing that you have that level of support is just a huge value driver. So that's amazing. So what's one of the biggest misconceptions that business owners have about Google Ads?
Well, I'll tell you some of the actual the problems that we see. First of all, sometimes people think that certain types of ads can be effective, but there's sort of a proven track record otherwise. So for example, display ads, I see a lot of businesses going in and trying to run those display banner ads on third-party websites, and they just throw their money away, right? So I guess to summarize, to say at a higher level, there's a million ways to lose your money on Google Ads. There's a million ways to make a mistake. There's really a very specific, narrow set of configurations that you should be doing to be following best practices. And there are best practices. There's a right and wrong way to set up accounts. So if you do even one thing wrong, it could be tanking your performance. So I'd say the most common misconception is definitely just, I can kind of play around and whatever I
Hmm.
work. I mean, every button serves a purpose, and you got to understand what's going on.
Yeah, so I think that leads into like, I mean, I hear it like, oh, Google Ads don't work for me. It doesn't work for my business. First thing I always ask is, were you running them? Or, is your cousin running them? Or like, who is really running them for you? So, what's like, usually when people are having those issues, they're like, oh, well, I tried or somebody tried for me and it's not an expert level person. What are like some of those common hangups that, someone like yourself, a Google Ads partner, and can kind of do it differently?
Well, I'll tell you some of the most common, and these are just configuration decisions that people make that I just see they make the wrong decision all the time. There's little things, like I said, using the display network or the Google partner network. I mean, it's just a really easy way to throw away your money. I see people who are not maximizing based on conversions. They're maximizing based on clicks. And what that means is they're trying to optimize to get the most traffic possible, but not the most sales or the most conversions,
Mm.
bookings, whatever you determine is the action that you want users to take. Whereas that's very, very important. You have to optimize based on your actual end goal, not just generating traffic, or Google will send you garbage traffic to your site. That's a really common hang up that I see all the time. There's various settings that are on the back end that I see people just, they turn it on or off and they really shouldn't. For example, there's one that says presence or interest. And basically, in other words, if you're a barbershop and you're in Chicago, do you want people from New York City to see your ads, or do you want only people from Chicago? But what if the person from New York City is saying, you know, maybe they've been Googling around Chicago recently for some reason. Well, if you have that presence or interest configuration on, you can just spend so much money outside of your geographically targeted area. And it's just a quick and easy way to lose a lot of money. That's a common
Mm.
all the time. These are really like in the weeds ones, but it
Yeah.
show you how even the little details make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great for people to hear because, they need those kind of examples of like, "Oh, okay, it's really that intricate or complicated, and it is in the weeds and so specific to each case." So, yeah, 100%. So if someone's running Google Ads right now, what are the first 3 things that you check to see if they're set up correctly?
What keywords they're going for. I definitely like to see what are they actually paying to show up for, what type of campaigns they have. Are they running, like I said, are they running display ads? That's a quick way to throw money away. There's really only like 2 or 3 campaign types that actually generate sales. I should also step back and say different companies have different goals. Maybe you just want
Mhm.
brand exposure. You're not necessarily looking to generate sales. There's different conversion types based on your goals, and ways to optimize like that. And then the other thing I look at is geographic targeting. Usually there's always a mistake to be made there. People don't know their market as well as they think they do.
Yeah,
And really, those are the first things I check.
totally. So how important is keyword intent versus keyword volume? Because I think that's something that a lot of people need to wrap their heads around.
It's a really good question. For context, what you're really saying is, there might be really targeted keywords that are perfect nail on the head fits for your business, but very few people actually search for them, right?
Right. You know that term, but other people don't.
Yeah, yeah, right. Ooh. So the problem is that okay, I might have these perfect 3 or 4 keywords, antiques from 1943, whatever edition. But how many people are actually searching for that, right? So there is a balance between intent and volume where you might just be typing in, selling antiques and you might get more volume, but it might not be that perfect audience that you're going for. Maybe you're looking for someone who's really into that 1940s style, right? So there's that balance. Overall, I lean heavier towards intent and less towards volume. So what that means is I would rather have a more curated list that maybe is a little pickier than go for things that might 80% go to waste and only 20% of the time they're a good fit. It really is case by case, but I would say overall keyword intent probably places a little more emphasis than keyword volume.
Yeah. And going off that question that just popped in my head, what about bidding on your own business name? Because I know for some people that can be, lucrative, for others not. So but sometimes I have sales calls with clients and they're like, oh, like we definitely want to bid on, our business name. And so could speak to that a little bit.
It depends on the business. I mean, the question is, are other people paying to get your term, right? If they are, then you probably want to, maintain your own status quo there. But if no one else is competing with you, like no one else is actively paying to show up for your business name, I mean, you're guaranteed to be the top result, but hopefully you're already towards the top if someone's typing in your business name anyway. So it really is a case by case. Now, an interesting question to kind of build on that is, should you also target your competitors, not just your own business name, but the name of your competitors? And the answer to that depends on the nature of your business. And if someone who's maybe typing in a competitor's name, if someone's typing in Wendy's, should McDonald's and Burger King should be paying for that, for paying to show up there? Like, do they think that they can steal that session? And usually it's when you're the smaller business and you're going after like a bigger chain, right? So like, let's say you're a local smoothie shop and you want to pay for like tropical smoothie, or if you're a coffee shop, you want to pay for Starbucks related, right? Because someone who's going to Starbucks maybe is willing to be convinced to go to a different coffee shop they haven't heard of before. Oftentimes I recommend not only to lock up your own name, but also go after your competitors a little bit.
It's one of my favorite questions, of course, as a web designer. What role does landing page quality play in conversion success?
Bigger than you think. One thing that we do as a service is A/B testing. What's cool about A/B testing is it's just making little incremental changes on your website and sending half your traffic to the old version, half your traffic to the new version, and seeing how that actually impacts conversion rate. Like what percentage of people book that appointment or make that purchase, wherever it is. And like we've seen the smallest things make the biggest difference. Like one time we had the book now button, it was actually a schedule button. We increased the size by 2 pixels and the conversion rate went up like 5%. And for even a medium-sized business, a 5% conversion rate is a huge impact. I mean, it was a 7-figure impact for them. So even the smallest changes could have a big impact. So not only is landing page important, it's something that should be constantly worked at.
100%. Yeah. And so, in terms of like tracking all of that, talk a little bit about how you track that. How do you show where people are at in the landing page and how they scroll through it and how you inform that decision?
So I'm going to name a few free tools that honestly anyone could use. So
Awesome.
the
Listen
first
up,
ones
guys.
are going to match the hat here. which are Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager. So that gives you great data um, across everything that's going on your website, where people are coming from, how long they spend on your site, what pages they go to, what actions they take. Do they sign up? Do they purchase whatever it is? Do they donate? And you can basically have total visibility about the behavior of users on your website. You can segment it out by various, relevant segments. Like I said, traffic sources, right? So like, hey, my Google traffic is smaller than my Facebook traffic, but it lasts twice as long and they're 20% more likely to actually convert. That's useful information. And that's all free. It's just a little like 30-minute sign up you got to get through. For those who want to go a step further, I like call tracking. If your business has to do with phone calls, it's not free, but there's plenty of third-party paid call tracking tools out there. They're like 40, $50 a month, nothing crazy. And you can have total visibility over your phone calls and, who called when, from what source, how happy they are, all this kind of cool data. And then what's also free is Microsoft Clarity. So Microsoft Clarity actually screen records website sessions from your visitors. And again, this is all free. And you can basically watch people's mouses as they go across your page and see what trends happen over time. How do users actually behave? What are they actually reading? What are they actually kind of just scrolling past? So if you're really looking to like actually track user behavior and see how they actually move across the page, Microsoft Clarity.
Terrifying, but useful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's options to be thought of here. It is anonymized as far as that goes, but
Yeah,
yeah, good
totally.
point.
So can you explain quality score in a way non-marketers can understand?
Yeah, it's kind of just like a bogus score that Google puts together that is based on a few things. It's based on how relevant your homepage is to the keyword. So if you're selling massage services or like an IV therapy service, for example, and your landing page is about manicures and pedicures, Google's going to say, okay, it's not super relevant, right? You should have a landing page that's related to IV therapy. So they'll dock you for that. And beyond that, they'll actually look at the text in the ads themselves. Are the headlines and the descriptions that you see in those search ads, are they actually relevant compared to the keyword that you're
Mm.
actually trying to search for? So it's just Google's way of kind of making sure that you're serving relevant content, and they will dock you. They will will have a worse performance if you have a bad score. So you have to play their game. It's ultimately just an arbitrary score made by Google, and you have to abide by it. You have to at least have a good score, I recommend.
Yeah, I would think it has something to do with, Google wanting to put out good user experience for their users. They don't want to send people to a landing page that has nothing to do with the ad. So yeah, frustrating for us as marketers, but I understand why they do it.
I mean, it makes sense for the end user for sure.
Right. So what are some common mistakes that waste ads?
Well, I mentioned a few already, right? Like the display ads, the presence versus interest problem. Unless you're like a hotel or something where all your clients are out of town. I would say that where a lot of people are not taking advantage of enough is performance max campaigns, which are the Google Maps campaigns. And it's less of a mistake and more of an underutilized campaign type. So if you're a local business with a brick and mortar location, or even if you're not, let's say you just service an area, but you have a Google Map profile, having that can be a huge difference because a lot of users that's one of the highest converting rate campaign types across all of Google Ads. And again, think about it yourself. I think that most people psychologically don't mind sponsored content showing up there more than the normal classic search ads. So I think that it's one of the most subtle ways that you can kind of take advantage of one of the more powerful platforms. And now Performance Max also contributes towards the Google Gemini results. So Google doesn't want to brag about this, but it's pay to play right now for Gemini. And there's an organic component, but you can pay to be recommended by Gemini. And that is also in the Performance Max campaign.
Yeah, and so for people listening, so the Google ad, the maps, that's, the Google business listings that come up with the reviews showing locally to your location. And then Gemini is that AI companion that responds to you with kind of a summary of whatever the question you asked was.
If you haven't seen either of those yet, you haven't been on Google in a while.
Yeah. So how long should businesses realistically expect before seeing results?
I usually tell people the first month is always the worst month. You're collecting data. You're just trying to get things configured. You're trying to make sure you're collecting data that you can optimize on. By month 2, you should start seeing results. By month 3, you should really hit the ground running. You can hit the ground running earlier, but if by month 3, you're still struggling, something's going on. It shouldn't take 3 months to be producing on Google Ads.
And so Why is proper conversion tracking so critical, and why do so many businesses get this wrong?
Well, because Google's algorithm rewards behavior that you determine that you want to reward. So, for example, if you want to reward phone calls, and let's be more specific, phone calls that book an appointment or phone calls that last at least 60 seconds, something like that. Google can go out and say, okay, who are more users who are likely to actually generate a 60-second phone call rather than just any user off the street? So Google's got an algorithm, right? The Google Ads has an algorithm, and it's not just trying to leave you out dry. It's trying to find real customers for you. And you're basically giving the algorithm a tool to say, okay, this is a good lead versus a bad lead, or this is a good click versus a bad click. And by not taking advantage of that, you're ultimately just telling Google, I'm not differentiating between any of the traffic that you're generating for me. And at the end of the day, you only want customers. You don't want to spend money on bot clicks or on users who are looking for a job when you're trying to sell a service, right? Like that's one I see all the time. I see people trying to like jobs for this or that, right? So you got to stay on top of it.
So what should businesses actually be tracking beyond clicks? I know we mentioned call tracking, tracking, the experience on the website. Is there anything else they should be tracking?
So if they're e-commerce, then they should be tracking sales all the way through. Add to cards, sales, all that kind of fun stuff. That's part of the e-commerce flow. You should track each step in that flow. So that when I say e-commerce, I mean your business involves transacting online. Someone's putting their credit card or payment method information through the internet. So those are really clear in terms of what's valuable there. It's sales. If you're a service-based business, it depends on the business, but often phone calls or request a quote or schedule an appointment. Depends on your website, what you have set up as sort of the primary call to action. There's all different kinds of potential conversions that might be relevant for you. If you're a nonprofit, it's probably getting volunteers or donations, right? And all of these things are trackable events on a website. So if you have a donate page, okay, set up tracking so that every time someone donates, you know where that source came from. And if it's Google Ads, you can feed it back into your system. If it's Facebook ads, you can feed it back into your system. If it's email marketing, right? It's really valuable to make sure that you're tracking these conversions.
So how do tools like Render Analytics help business owners see what's really working?
Well, for Google Ads, I mean, we full service shop, right? We take care of everything and we meet regularly with the clients, but our goal is to basically worry about this for you so you can focus on other elements of your business. It's just a matter of you probably want an expert to be your mechanic and you probably want an expert to be the person running your Google Ads. And you can teach yourself, but there is a steep learning curve. And if you can get through it, great. But ultimately, you have to know your stuff or you're going to throw away your money.
Totally. And a question that I get a lot is, okay, so we have you guys work on Google Ads, but then can we just let it run after that? Why do we have to keep paying you for ongoing maintenance? So speak to that, because I think that's so important for people to understand, is that it's not just like a one and done, you set it up and then it's going to work forever.
Absolutely. We're in our accounts. Each of our accounts, we look at least once or twice a week. So what are things that are ongoing requirements that you have to stay on top of? One of the biggest ones is we talked about keywords, but there's this other piece of Google Ads called search terms. And they're basically like the near matches to the keywords that you selected. So unless you have an exact match strategy, which I usually recommend, you're usually not just showing up for the keywords that you already predetermined, but you're also showing up for near matches. So typos, or if you're looking for IV therapy and someone types in IV therapy near me, okay, that's close enough. Let's make sure that we're not missing that one, right? So this whole section of search terms, though, it needs to be constantly curated, because what ends up happening is a lot of search terms that are not relevant might sneak through the cracks. So maybe unwanted competitor terms in cases where you don't want to pay for a competitor, or maybe it's like a near match to your service. So maybe you're a chiropractor and the keyword is like osteopathy or something like that. And it's like, okay, I don't actually want to pay for the term osteopathy. I want to only pay for chiropractor terms. So you have to constantly be curating that if you don't have an exact match strategy, which again, most people should not. That's the biggest thing that you have to maintain. But beyond that, I mean, you have to constantly be understanding which ads are performing well, which are not performing well, and replacing or trying to iterate on the ones that are maybe underperforming. You can always be curating your geographic targeting to be improving that. You can always be improving your actual, like, what they're called as assets, where they're basically extensions of little things you put in the ads other than just the text itself. Like, again, phone numbers, addresses, things like that. So there are all these little configurations that you want to monitor and keep optimizing over time. That being said, there is such thing of like hitting a really great configuration and you're just rolling. And yeah, maybe you're not like hitting everything perfectly, but you know what? You're making enough money that you don't really care. In some cases, sure, go for it, but eventually there's going to be some configuration change that happens or some setting in Google's algorithm that changes. And like, did you make the adjustment or not?
Awesome. And so how do you connect Google Ads data to real revenue, not just vanity metrics like, traffic and fees?
Like I said, you got to track it, right? Google Tag Manager is a great tool that solves 80% of the problems. Sometimes you have to get a little more custom than that, but it's a free tool that connects to websites. And if the conversion takes place on the website, it's just a really easy way to track it. So at the end of the day, you have to track it and then you can optimize on it. And I sound like a data nerd when I say that, but that's the truth, right? You can't improve if you're not tracking it. And it starts with that.
So what's one data point most business owners ignore that could dramatically improve performance?
Well, I would argue there's only really two metrics that really matter. I would say it's less that they ignore it, whereas they get caught up in vanity metrics, like you mentioned. Vanity metrics might include like impressions, which is just how many times you showed up in a search, clicks, cost per click. These are ways you can get lost. There's only two metrics that really matter. One is cost per lead. How efficient is it to actually generate a lead for you? Is it $5? Is it $20? Is it $100? And and then built on that is return on ad spend. For every dollar that you spend on Google Ads marketing, how many dollars do you make back in revenue? And that's how you have to measure yourself by. Across all of digital marketing, Google Ads and Meta Ads, the average is 2x, which means for every dollar that you put into Google Ads, you get $2 back in revenue. But that's the average. That's not good, right? Because you've got cost of goods sold, you've got other expenses. You can't be losing half your margin on marketing, right? So what's considered, above average is 4x. So if you're getting over 4x on any given initiative, you're technically above average. That varies by industry, but that's like a good general rule. Our clients we actually average above 10x. So we're pretty proud about that. Now it varies by client. And there's some clients that obviously with an average, there's some that are lower, some that are higher. We very much promote that return on ad spend metric as a way to sort of evaluate our performance.
And I think it's, important to note that's once you've optimized, that's once it's a finely tuned machine. That's not month one.
Sure. Yeah, not month one. Never month one.
Yes. Why are Google business profiles so underrated?
Well, most people don't know that the quantity and quality of reviews on your Google business profile is basically the number one factor that goes into Google's organic search algorithm. So it's not just a matter of Google Ads, but just having a strong Google business profile is basically the number one way to make sure that you show up organically at the top of searches, and especially on the top of Google Maps searches. And specifically the quantity and quality of 5-star reviews. So if you have a 4.1 rating by 1,000 reviews, that's actually worse than having a 4.8 rating but 500 reviews. So there's actually a balance in terms of making sure you're rated very highly and you have a ton of reviews. So, algorithmically, if you want to show up higher on Google searches, you've got to take that seriously, especially if your business is a local business, and you have a physical location. But beyond that, you can connect Google Business Profile to your Google Ads so you can really take advantage of that. We talked about Performance Max earlier. So it does help a lot with the Google Ads, right? Because you can connect your Google Ads to your Google Business Profile, but you can also use that for updates, events. You can basically post blogs there and actually further boost your profile. So basically, your Google Business Profile is a big part of your SEO. There's other factors like what's going on your website, how mobile friendly your website is, how fast your website loads. But the Google Business Profile is the number one factor that goes in.
And so, what are the biggest mistakes that businesses make with their Google business profiles aside from not having them?
Aside from not having them, yeah. Well, I think a lot of people don't realize that they have this update section at the bottom where you can constantly post recent updates, blogs, just announcements, graphics, whatever you want.
Mhm.
And that goes into the algorithm. So that helps. Plus, it keeps people engaged. Now, again, I'm going to emphasize the importance of the reviews. You should really consider not just what your review counts are, but what your competitors are. Because you have a certain number of competitors. As long as you're beating them, you're in great shape. You're number one. You just got to make sure that you're beating your competitors. So I think the number one mistake people have is they don't take that seriously enough.
And I heard recently that the Google business profile, like post updates, are going to start being or already being considered in the AI response with Gemini. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. So Gemini is changing everything. So obviously that's taking up the top of Google, right? So the more you can be recommended, the better. So it's absolutely true that Google Gemini is looking not just at your website, but at your Google business profile.
Yeah. So people can actually start to mold how they come up in the AI companion results with the posts that they're putting out onto their Google business profile.
Absolutely. And I would recommend to someone who's doing that to do Q&A or like frequently asked question formats,
That's what I was gonna ask. What are some good kind of questions and just posts to share? Like, what do you recommend people to put on their Google Business profile posts?
The way people interact with Gemini is kind of Q&A format. The way it's very similar to how they interact with ChatGPT or the other AI platforms. They ask a question and you need to basically have answers that Google Gemini can call on to respond. So if you have a very structured question answer style formatting, that's the quickest and easiest way for Gemini to notice you.
Okay, cool. So say they've got a winery, right? What is some good questions that you'd want to put or some Google Business posts that would, be positive to put on there?
So maybe a question might be, what are some of the best wineries available in Atlanta, Georgia, or outside Atlanta, Georgia, wherever you are, right? And so I would sort of make sure you have those top of mind searches ready to go, but also maybe something a little more nuanced, a little less direct. So for example, maybe what are some of the types of wines that grow in this region of the country, right? Okay, you might want to pop up there and be like, well, this winery grows wine types XYZ, right? So you really just want to ask yourself, what would the customer actually search for in Gemini where I would want to be recommended? And let me reverse engineer that question back.
Gotcha. So you're actually writing copy and creating a graphic around those questions. And you're, of course, giving yourself as one of the answers to those questions.
Or establish yourself as an expert because they do recommend the links at the top, right? So you don't have to recommend yourself as long as you're answering a question that is basically down the same path that you want them to be going down.
So, how often should businesses be posting or updating their Google Business profiles?
As far as reviews go, as often as they can, they can't get enough as long as they're 5 stars. If it's not 5 stars, maybe don't ask the person. As far as updating goes, I there's really no answer that's going to say too much because the algorithm's going to reward constant fresh content. But if you're even going once a week, you're doing something, right? Especially if you're a small business. Obviously everyone's got different limitations in terms of the amount of content that they have to put out there, that amount of information they have to share. But if you're doing at least once a week, you're doing something right.
What's like your ideal place? Are they doing it every day? Is it 3 days, 5 days?
Like I said, you really can't do enough. So, I mean, you could do every day if you really want. It's not like Google's going to penalize you for being super active. It's kind of like social media in that way, right? But at the same time, it's even better than social media because if you're posting 5 times a day in your Instagram, you might annoy your followers. But on your Google Business profile, no one's going to really notice if you're posting that often, right? Really, yeah, there's no limit.
Okay, awesome. So, how do reviews impact visibility and conversions? And then I do want to touch on if people do get negative reviews, what's the best way that you recommend to handle that? But first and foremost, how do the reviews impact visibility and conversions?
Well, like I said, it goes into the algorithm. But beyond that, there's a human psychological effect. And I can tell you, my wife, she is the number one culprit of this. She is a review snob. So
Oh
she's
my
looking.
God, yeah, guilty as charged. Me too. My boyfriend's like, we can't go anywhere unless you read all the reviews.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, if we see a place that's like 4.3 stars for like a restaurant or something, I mean, she'd be like, look at these reviews and that'll be enough to discourage us. So, and I do see that becoming more and more popular and Google has increasingly become for B2C specifically for business to consumer sales, the real hotspot for that. It used to be Yelp and Yelp's still around, but Google dominates the space at the end of the day. That's where people are reviewing. I should mention that business to business customers don't do as well on Google Ads. So if you're selling to other businesses, Google Ads actually tends to be worse. And there's exceptions to that, but it really is more built for the business to consumer model. There's better channels for business to business for most businesses. So for example, I have an IT services company that's a client of mine and they wanted to do Google Ads. And we said, you shouldn't do it because people aren't looking for their IT service provider through Google Ads. They're looking through referrals or through personal connections or through other means. But overall, I'd say 90 to 95% of the time, B2B does not work well on Google Ads. And there's a little tangent aside, but I do think it's important to mention. And then you asked about removing reviews. Yes, you
And
can. You
let's
can.
and let's assume that this business does a good job. They're honest people, and they just got one of those customers, or maybe the customer didn't even come in, or they weren't open, or they just, they got a bad review they really didn't reserve or deserve. Where do they go from there?
So there is like an appeal tool, Google Business Profile Review Appeal Tool, and if you just put that into Google, it'll show up. You have to basically argue that the review was breaking a policy. So maybe it was like a disgruntled employee who's trying to seek revenge, or maybe it was a competitor who's trying to sabotage your rating. those are actually, you can appeal those and get those reversed. If it's a truly unsatisfied customer who is not breaking any policy violation, you can try to submit an appeal, but you'll probably get rejected. That being said, there is a button on each review that you can challenge the review in as many times as you want from as many different email addresses as you want. So obviously it helps your case if you get a bunch of people who are basically saying this is not an accurate review. It is a little bit of a nuanced game though, because at the end of the day, the people who are reviewing this, they do this all day long. They're pretty dry people. They're not really willing to hear your side of the story. You have to have a really strong case.
Awesome. So, what's one single optimization that business owners can do this week to get more leads from their Google business profile?
Well, if they're not doing any of the things I said already, start doing them. Like present your interest, all that stuff that I mentioned earlier. But I'll just start small with something that I think that everyone can do. Make sure that if you have an ad running on any platform, make sure you have two ads running with slight variations between them and see which one does better over time, right? And if you've got one that's outperforming the other, great. Remove that other one, maybe replace it with a new one, and constantly be trying to push yourself to new limits by constantly A/B testing yourself. And I think that's something that anyone could do if they're comfortable enough doing Google ads on their own already. And it's just a way that you're never content. You're always trying to marginally improve yourself.
So, how do Google Ads and Google Business Profiles work together for local businesses?
They connect. There's a button in there that says connect to Google Business Profile. And again, there's specifically an ad type that shows up on Google Maps, and that's a really important one. But even the normal search ads, they can show the address and the reviews directly in the ads. So Google is all obviously one company, and they've thought about this, and they've integrated these things in a way that's supposed to add a synergy effect.
So, Render Analytics is unique in that your agency doesn't just work on digital marketing, you're also data analytics experts. So, what services do you offer there around if they're not just wanting digital marketing, but they need, analytics help? How do you help out?
That was originally how we started as a data company. And like I said, the digital marketing kind of grew organically as we realized there's a huge demand for that sort of a data-driven approach. So we do basically end-to-end solutions. So we help with collecting data from different sources and making sure they're all in one centralized place. We help with data warehouses and architecture. We help build reporting and automation and dynamic dashboards so that people can kind of interpret their data in useful ways. And it's not just kind of this painful spreadsheet to look at that no one can actually make any sense of, right? The whole idea of data is ultimately make information more consumable, right? How do I actually make better decisions based on things that just make sense? Oh, 80% of my customers are women. What do I do? Should I start targeting women more in my marketing? Like these are little decisions that you have to be making using data. So data engineering, data architecture, dashboard building, reporting, data analysis. So we'll do actual analysis for you, predictive modeling. We even do AI. So we basically do it all when it comes to data. We're an end-to-end solutions agency, and we treat each client sort of as their own problem. They come in, this is what's going on, this is what we need to do, or this is what we think we need to do. And we sort of operate as a consultant, but also as an implementation specialist. So if you've got a data problem, bring it on. We can fix it. We got some
So,
smart
what
people.
are Yeah, 100%. It sounds like that. So, what are some common use cases for businesses that are just getting started leveraging data and want to see an early ROI?
That's a great question because everyone wants to see a return on investment right away. And some of the more complex things are long-term solutions, but they don't necessarily give you a day one good return on investment. So what are some quick wins? One of my favorite quick wins is what's called a customer lifetime value analysis. And you really understand where all of your customers come from in terms of different segments. So by traffic source, but also other things that relate to sales. What percentage of your sales come from different employees? So how do different employees have an impact on actual revenue? How do different processes have an impact on revenue? And you basically slice and dice the data in a way to really understand, okay, when I have the highest value customers, what things are going right for me, right? Is it characteristics about the customer themselves, like where they live? So for example, we did an analysis for a pest control company, and they wanted to understand, okay, how do we actually make more money doing what we do? So we did analysis and we found some things that probably sound intuitive, but no one had ever told them before, right? First of all, we found certain zip codes were way more profitable than others. Why? Because they had characteristics that would be perfect for a pest control company. Maybe they were near like a lot of lush wildlife, or they had bigger yards, or they're more higher percentage of homeowners as opposed to renters, things that maybe you never thought of, but it's like, oh, wow, zip codes that have a higher percentage of homeowners are more likely to use pest control services. And you find these little insights and they're like, okay, I'm going to spend my future marketing on these zip codes instead of these. And it's just actionable little things that you can do in your everyday business that you can act on right away.
I love what you said about how it can help, inform them about the internal things going inside their business, like what employees are performing the best, right? They think probably data for marketing, it's like, oh, it's all about the customer, it's all about the consumer, but it can actually tell you a lot about, how to improve your business internally.
We love to do these things called usage curves where you see customer return rates based on who their first employee they interacted with were. And it's brutal because no one can hide from the data. And like, again, going back to that pest control company, it's a kind of service that you want to get people on over and over again. If you're in that business, you want to get people on like a monthly plan or a quarterly plan, something like that. And it's crazy to see how like some employees only get like a 10% return rate and others get like 60, 70%. And, going even a year long. And it's crazy how just the humans that you're interacting with can make all the difference. And again, it's brutal because sometimes you find out that it's not like something that's systematically going on. Like this person is just not performing. Sometimes it is systematic though. Like maybe how many, how many clients do you have to interact with a day? Does that actually impact your bottom line performance? We found that to be the case a lot, that people get burnt out. So definitely internal operations, it's some of the more fun stuff, but it also can get a little muddy, a little sensitive.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, because you're selling the same product, but if customers are having a vastly different experience, you got to figure out where that's coming from. So, what kind of custom solutions does your team build?
So, like I said, people come with a problem. They might say, hey, I want this data source and this data source to come together, and I want to have this reporting dashboard. And I want it to be powered by a single database that updates on its own. We can do that. We'll build a custom solution. Or someone might say, I want to build a custom web application. I wanted to have this interface on the front end. We can do that. So we have full stack developers, and our job, we basically have niched ourselves as sort of the custom option, right? But we can do generic solutions that, obviously happen over and over and over again. But where we make our money is basically people come to us and say, this is exactly what I need. And we're going to build them a solution that works. And there's always the build versus buy decision. But even in today's world, things are so complicated. You're usually building sort of custom solutions, even if you're using third-party tools in the process.
Amazing. And so, speaking of third-party tools, leads us into your other company. So, what is Applied Genie, and what problem did you see in the job application process that made you want to build it?
Yeah, yeah. So we built so many things for other businesses, but Applied Genie was one we made that Render Analytics wholly owns. It's kind of our baby. Applied Genie is kind of our baby in a way. We're passionate about it. So Applied Genie is for job applications. So it sort of serves two purposes. One, it aggregates jobs from different job listing sites into one place and then scores them for you based on what you're qualified to apply for and what you might actually have a good chance of getting an interview for. And then it actually auto fills the job applications for you as well. So it really is sort of AI for job applications. It automates the process. The key here is it's got to work, because if you send out like a bunch of spam applications, your product will fall apart very quickly. And there's a lot of AI tools in the market that kind of do that. We really pride ourselves on the quality of the applications themselves. Like the AI really takes into account who you are as a person, what your resume is, did you connect your LinkedIn, what information did you give us? And it tries to give truly quality answers to job application questions.
Made it as this like, can I be sitting by the pool and it's applying to jobs for me?
That's the idea. That's the idea. Apply Genie was founded in, I want to say 2024 now. And it won a local startup competition here in Orlando, the Orlando Business Journal Tech Startup Competition. We've got tens and tens of thousands of users, but it started as a tool on my home computer because my wife would come home from work every day hating her job. She was my fiance at the time, so I still had to win her over. And so I created this tool that, and we used to say, like, applying for a job is a job, and it's like you're so exhausted from the day. The last thing you want to do is like be really thoughtful in your job applications. And so the idea is, yeah, truly to automate as much of it as possible. Now, I won't say it's 100% automated in the sense that you have to pick the jobs you want to apply for. At the end of the day, like what might have been a 45-minute job application just became a 5-minute job application, right? Or even less. So, it's it's a numbers game out there right now. I think I saw some stat recently that some like 70 or 80 job applications are required to get one interview or something like that. It's the job market's brutal right now. It's really tough, especially for recent graduates. I think a lot of that is actually AI, unfortunately, and in the tech world especially. But if it's a numbers game, you got to get yours out there and you got to get out quality applications. So that's the idea. I don't think any platform in this space is perfect, but I think compared to some of our competitors, we really offer some of the highest quality actual results in terms of getting interviews.
So how does the Applied Genie actually work behind the scenes, and how is it different from manually applying on platforms like LinkedIn or Indeed, where maybe like autofills your information, but it's not really like AI applying for you?
So there's inputs, right? You give information into the platform one time that gives it a lot of information about you. And you can even input different resumes, like if you have maybe different jobs that you're interested in. And it builds a persona around you, right? So it scores jobs that are based on what you're qualified for. And it's truly not just autofilling based on like what was saved previous results. It's based on what the job that you're applying for is, like what's the correct answer, in other words, like what do they want to hear? And then what's actually the truth based on your resume and kind of meeting halfway there. So some questions are really obvious, right? How many years of experience do you have with Google Ads? And others might be a little more complex. If it's too complex or there's no information on that answer, we won't fill it. We'll just fill out all the other questions. An example I like to give is, uh, tell me about a time you struggled with a colleague. That's not going to be on your resume. So probably leave that one blank for you to fill out yourself, but we'll fill out all the other ones for you.
Oh, that's cool. So it doesn't just not apply to that one. It like sends you a notification or something and says like, hey, can you please personally reply to this one?
Yeah, I'll save as a draft and tee it up for you. So you can just do that last question and send it out.
So cool. So who's Applied Genie best suited for? What types of job seekers see the strongest results?
Well, it's pulling from like about a half dozen to a dozen job listing sites. So if someone's got jobs that if they're looking for at those sites, it's suited for them. So a few of the main sites are LinkedIn, Indeed, USA Jobs, Venture Loop, and there's a couple others. So if you're looking at those sites, you might as well try to use Apply Genie and see if it works for you. I'll generally say this: a lot of our users are kind of fitting into a couple buckets. They are either a young person who just graduated either high school or college and they're looking for their first job, and they're trying to, and the job market's tough right now for a recent graduate, or you're someone who's maybe been in the job market for a while and you're looking to maybe switch careers or just switch it up and you're just kind of exploring what's out there. Either way, the platform's for you. I would just say the nature of job listing sites is usually the types of jobs that are on them are usually, and this is not universally true, but they're generally more white collar. They're generally more oriented towards people maybe between the ages of like 20 and 50. And by what I mean by that is usually people aren't posting like executive level positions or C-suite level positions on like LinkedIn, right? So those types of jobs are a little more difficult. But if you're looking to be more like middle management or, an analyst or something like that, or a nurse, yeah, absolutely.
And so how quickly can it apply to jobs for you versus like doing it with your hands yourself?
Well, I mean, it's a few button clicks and then you're going for it, and you can set up a whole queue so it's just going for a bunch at a time. It's not necessarily like it has to wait one after the other. So, I mean, what might take you, like I said, it depends on the complexity of the application, but some applications take like 30 minutes to fill out, an hour to fill out, and it's going to take like 2 minutes for you,
Oh my
right? So
gosh.
it's look, you only got so many hours in the day, right? You got to work smart, not hard, they say.
100%. And if you need to apply to so many to even get an interview, you're just increasing your odds. Do you have any like cool success stories to share around that, or like how many, applies people have to do to get a job or anything like that?
Yeah, we do have stats that we advertise on the site. I'll tell you one cool story. Was I was doing a talk. We partner with this organization called Onward to Opportunity. They're a veterans group here in the United States, and they basically help United States veterans get back into the private workforce, right, and find a job. And we basically let members of that organization use Apply Genie for free. What was cool is I was doing a talk for Onward Opportunity, and someone in the audience goes, "I use your platform, and I got a teaching job." It was very cool to see someone who just,
That is so cool. People
yeah,
are like, "Did you plant them there?" Like, and you're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Nope." That's
It was almost
awesome.
too good to be true.
Yeah,
I promise I didn't hire this person. So that was a
that's
cool
incredible.
experience.
So, what are the biggest mistakes people make when applying for jobs today, and how does Apply Genie help eliminate those friction points?
Well, there's a lot of ways to make mistakes. I'll say this: within the AI game, like a lot of people are doing AI now and for job search, and it's causing a mess. And I admit that we have played some role in this, but first of all, there's a lot of tools that do these like kind of mass apply, and they don't change the application or the resume from submission to submission, and it just lowers the chance of getting interviews. It also just floods the market with all these applications, making HR departments' lives very difficult. But on the flip side, HR departments are using AI to read job applications and just trying to filter people out before they even talk to a human being. So there's sort of like a flooding of the market right now. My recommendation to people is don't use AI for your resume. So if you're going to the resume is an input for Applied Genie, but I recommend that you actually still make a good old fashioned resume on your own, and you can use ChatGPT or whatever to bounce ideas off of and maybe refine it, but don't just throw in a bunch of bullet points into ChatGPT and then immediately just save that as a resume. One, because it's going to sound very generic and you're not going to stand out. But more importantly, a lot of these applicant tracking systems that the employers use can detect that. It's very hard to detect AI being used on a job application, but it's actually way easier to detect AI being used in the resume itself. So if you get caught, keep using the AI resumes. If you're looking to sort of automate tasks, the questions that are getting repeated over and over again anyway, do I require sponsorship? What are all these questions that you get on all these applications? There's honestly no harm, no foul when using AI if it's just repetitive like that. But when your resume is supposed to be your story, it's supposed to be personal. And I feel like that's how you get in trouble.
Yeah, and I think people are getting really good at even just reading copy and, knowing if it's written by AI now. So, yeah, you
Yeah,
don't wanna shoot
exactly.
yourself
Yeah,
in the foot.
exactly.
So we have a lot of agency owners that listen. So what separates agencies that thrive from those that burn out? Any, like, big lessons, anything like that that you really experienced through being an agency owner?
I mean, this is personal to me, but I found that the hardest lesson I had to learn was you can't do it all on your own. You gotta build a good, solid team around you. I know you know that, Cassie, because you've got an amazing team around you. And if you try to do it all yourself, you're gonna get burnt out, like you said, and you're also gonna just produce a worse product as you scale. So as you scale, it's really important that you surround yourself with good people that you trust.
Yeah, my goal is always wanting to bring on people that are smarter than me, which is why I love
Yeah.
working with you. How is AI changing Google Ads analytics right now?
Well, the biggest way is through Gemini, right? So we know that Gemini is showing up right at the top and it's pay to play. But beyond that, I mean, people are using AI to the way they used to use Google, right? So people sometimes go to ChatGPT. Google's lost market share.
Oh my god, yeah, I don't even go to Google anymore for, like, if I'm looking up, like, I don't know, how to change the wiper blade on my car or something, like, I put it in ChatGPT because it's just so quick.
Absolutely. Google knows that, right? And that's why they're pushing Gemini so hard. But that changes the way that we target people, right? Because if Google is getting smaller, their influence is getting marginally smaller. The question is, okay, how do I show up on those ChatGPT or those Claude searches? And there's a whole different game. ChatGPT doesn't have ads. There's things that you can do called AEO that basically is the way to play with ChatGPT's algorithm. So there's best practices there, right? But ultimately, it's a totally different game now. So it's impacting things significantly. I'll only add to that also, these platforms are now integrating AI into their own solutions. So like they want to use AI to write your headlines for you, or in Meta, they want to just do your whole ads for you using AI. And if you lean on the AI, sometimes, especially in Meta, it actually rewards you. Like Google is like, or Facebook is like, yeah, good for you for using our AI. We'll actually bump your performance up a little bit. So it's changing the game.
Yeah. Wow. So looking ahead, how do you see automation and AI changing the job search process over the next few years, and where does Apply Genie fit into that future?
Well, it could go one of two ways. So it can either be terrible and it just becomes everything is AI and it's AI talking to AI trying to match people to jobs, or one or two competitors figure out how to become like a two-sided marketplace where it becomes like the eHarmony of job searches, right? Where it becomes more of a matchmaker service and less of um, a one-way street where you're just trying to sort of become a funnel and the other end might not be happy that you're giving spam applications and things like that. So whoever can figure out how do I actually have a two-sided marketplace that both sides feel like they're getting quality hires out of, like you're a 98% match, you're a 96% match, I think that company is going to be very successful. Who's it going to be? It remains to be seen.
Yeah, yeah, I think just the way the AI is going to change everything over the next like 5 to 10 years, it's just going to be absolutely shocking.
It's going to be hard to predict. And I'll say this is all not a good thing either, because especially in the tech industry, there's actually a lot of job shrinkage going on where people are losing their jobs to it. We're going to see how this thing plays out. The whole world isn't exactly going in the best direction right now when it comes to this industry. So I do have concerns, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, and so what's, some of the best advice that you've received as an entrepreneur? And I think that term is going to change a lot over the next like 5 to 10 years with all of this as well. But some advice that you've kind of received that helped you out, that it kind of pops up in your head when you're having one of those days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I already mentioned how you got to trust your people, and like that's so important. But beyond that, I think this too is it's so important to be resilient. And you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have good days. Growth isn't always in a straight line, and you just got to kind of take one step forward, solve what you can solve, plan and learn from it the best you can, and don't get too demoralized if you're in the road a little bit.
So if a business owner listens to this episode and does just one thing differently, what should it be?
Use data. Make use. I guess I'll wrap it up cleanly here. That you should be a data-driven organization, no matter what business you're in. You should be tracking all different kinds of things. So if I could say one thing, be a data-driven organization.
Amazing. And so where can people find you, learn more about render analytics, and check out Applied Genie?
Well, you can definitely look up both the Render Analytics and the Applied Genie websites. You can just Google us. We also have, you can find both on social media, especially on Instagram. We're very active. Uh, Actually, you guys manage our Applied Genie Instagram account. So if you want to see some fun stuff there, check it out. We also have Render Analytics on social media too. And if you want to reach out to me, just reach out through the website. We can set up some time to talk. We have a great team here, and we're always happy to meet.
And so I always love to end these episodes with what's one piece of just game changing life advice. It can be business, it can be spirituality, health, anything. Just game changer piece of advice that you heard that really just clicked for you, changed the game.
Man, I wasn't ready for that.
Take some time to think about it. It's a big question.
I would say that the people in your life are everything. I think that, and it's true of business, but it's also just true of life. If you surround yourself with good people who care about you, good things will come to you. If you surround yourself with people who maybe don't have your best interest at heart, you're gonna feel it eventually when you really need some extra help. So I think the people in your life are everything. I know it's very corny and very generic, but that's the best advice I've got.
Spot on. No, I couldn't agree more. Charlie, thank you so much for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure. And I know that people are going to be finding all the details about you in the call notes and listening today. So I hope that you can help some people out with their data.
Thanks for having me.